Chapter 31. How to acquire rhythmic breathing. The whole law of the rhythmic breath is now unfolded to you. You know its importance, you know that the vibrations surrounding every human being, as also all things from plants upward, are exactly symptomatic of internal conditions, being outward manifestations of those conditions, and you must realize the importance of the character and purity of the invisible color forces which compose the human aura. Therefore, there remains but to consider some details of the constant effect of the law. If we would hold ourselves receptive to the finer, purer tattvic currents flowing about us, it is imperative that the irregular fleeting waves of color which commonly sweep rapidly as before gusts of wind through the aura, be reduced to regular rhythmic vibrations, otherwise they present a repellent wall. Given an earnest desire to improve, with control of those emotions generally recognized as evil, nothing else so degrades and lowers the colors as the all-too-common habit of depression, nothing else so purifies and refines them, and enlarges the aura, as the regular habit of deep, rhythmic breathing. We must give a glance at some of the reasons for our having to learn carefully and slowly, what should be perfectly natural to every human being. The first function of life which is aborted and perverted is that of correct breathing, and no other function is so little understood or so ignored and abused. It is this perversion and abuse that sow the first seeds of weakness and disorder in the human frame, because preventing any possibility of the harmonically balanced rhythmic flow of vital force. The babe, before he has submitted to discipline's unnatural methods of development, breathes deeply, moving his abdomen more than his chest, because the diaphragm is superintending the normal function, and, when lowered, thrusts the viscera downward, which distends the elastic muscles of the abdominal walls, and leaves the thorax above much enlarged for the full expansion of the lungs. Only thus can the lower lung cells be filled or have their stagnant residue of air changed and renewed. Everything stagnant is impure and invites germs of disease. The moment discipline treats the child as something that must be bent to civilization's standards instead of growing up naturally like a flower, constraint and fear begin their deadly work of tension and cramping, and nerves and muscles respond instantly to the iniquitous maldirection. Discord has set in and there is no more normal freedom. Fear clamps the lungs in a vice more harmful even than the external strictures of senseless clothing. The long-suffering body, restored to its rights, and relegated to its true position in the septenary chain of human principles, becomes a totally different thing from the incubus which generations of men have dragged through life in the belief that ills of the flesh were the natural and unavoidable evils of living. Only the gross ignorance of the primest necessities of healthful living has created and fostered most of these ills, an ignorance which, in spite of a decade and a half of the most active propaganda to spread the cult of health and prevention of disease through healthful living, still blinds the majority of mankind, and to the neglect of no one prime need is so much suffering due as to deprivation of fresh pure air. The purer the air, the purer are the tattvic vibrations and the higher their potencies. As life exists only from breath to breath, he who but half breaths only half lives, and reduces his tenure upon life to but a slender thread. The vital forces which are the source of all life and which maintain and renew it, enter our bodies with every breath, are rhythmic in the degree of its regularity, and their harmony and normal balance depend first upon the freshness and purity of the air inhaled. Every exhalation expels from the body noxious principles, wastes generated in the physiological chemistry of combustion processes, which are virulent poisons to all living creatures. Domestic animals and pet birds are even more susceptible to their deadly influence than is man himself, in whom unfortunately, the effects are slower and more subtle, else would mankind have awakened long ago to the loathsomeness of rebreathing these foul exhalations. The cult of deep breathing broke the first link in these self-forged shackles that mankind has dragged for so many weary centuries. But, unhappily, the cult was no sooner launched than it was split by theorists into many schools, and according to the teacher the student was drilled in diaphragmatic, intercostal, or clavicular breathing, systems which divide the thorax into lower, middle, and upper registers respectively, and inhibit more than slight, imperfect movements of air through the practically unemployed cells of the lungs. It seems never to have occurred to these experimenters to ask, much less could they answer the query, why so much space was taken up in the chest by masses of spongy substance that was of no use in the human economy, yet was so alarmingly susceptible to painful disorders. It was never intended that only a part of the lungs should be used, but men and women have each adopted their special method of defeating nature, the former, from neglect of clavicular, upper chest, breathing, furnishing the more victims of tuberculosis, and the latter, from their constriction of the waistline, inhibiting all the lower muscles from activity, thus often causing atrophy of the lower lobes of the lungs, and rendering practically immovable the vital organs just beneath the diaphragm, which encourages a long train of suffering. Semi-invalidism and early decay are inevitable under such conditions. Yet a New York authority upon voice culture says that with correct deep breathing, no voice need lose its beauty till 1, 2, or even 3 decades after the 40th birthday is past. Now, deep, rhythmic breathing uses no one of these restricted registers, but does employ all three in one. Habitual inhalations should be prolonged till every respiratory muscle has been called into action and every lung cell is distended. This cannot be accomplished without a perfectly free and strong elastic diaphragm. It is profoundly important that one learn not only how to make it so faithful practice will do it but also its exact office in this life function. The diaphragm is nearly the shape of an inverted basin, an irregular arch or crescent in every dimension. Acting like a bellows, when thrust out and downward, it expands the thorax, creating a vacuum into which the air is drawn, and it presses downward and outward all that is beneath it. Normal, deep breathing, which is rhythmic and harmonious, is thus an internal massage of all the vital organs. Every breath moves them gently in position, and consequently increases the circulation of the blood, and stimulates their secretions and excretions. The movements in both directions are partly contraction and partly expansion. If you are not certain that your habitual breathing thus lowers and raises the diaphragm so the whole lungs are alternately filled and emptied, practice deep breathing while lying prone upon your back upon an unyielding surface. You will thus both see and feel the downward and outward stretching movement of the diaphragm as it flattens out when you inhale, for the abdomen is distended by the lowering of the viscera, and you will distinctly feel the pressure upon the small of the back where the diaphragm is connected with the spine just below the lowest rib. Its great anchoring muscles, they're contracting, pull it down forcibly. This part should be distended as much as the abdomen, but at the beginning of practice is apt to be found inactive. It is in the filling of these lower lung cells that the favorable tattvas, prithvi, and apus, put in their finest work of upbuilding and renewing. With every inhalation the abdomen should rise gently, falling with the exhalation, when the diaphragm is arched upward pressing upon and emptying the lower lung cells. When you have mastered the method, resume a sitting or standing posture for practice. In habitual breathing, the exhalations should be in rhythm with the inhalations, counting from 6 to 8 during a movement according to lung power, which will increase amazingly as the chest walls and all muscles gain elasticity through regular practice. The pulse heartbeat should be the unit of count, for the two functions are most closely associated. Thus, inhale during 6 pulse throbs, hold breath during 3, exhale during 6 counts, hold lungs empty during 3 counts. Repeat a dozen times or more, lengthen the breath as power is gained, and practice according to convenience several times a day. In normal, rhythmic breathing, the solar current flows in and out through the right nostril, and the lunar current through the left. When it is desired to make one or the other current flow, close the nostril or press the 5th rib on the side you wish to make inactive, and inhale and exhale through the other nostril. Inhale slowly and always through the nostrils, in which passages there is provision to arrest impurities which, if carried to the lungs, would irritate their delicate structure. Contagious diseases can be contracted by the unlovely as well as unclean habit of mouth breathing. Do nothing automatically. In all your practice, make your thoughts follow and direct the vital currents. For example, think as well as feel the pressure and distension in the small of the back. You will thus greatly facilitate the forming of the habit of doing involuntarily what you must now practice. Moreover, indulgence in automatisms is dangerously apt to encourage absent-mindedness, a fault which leads to grave mistakes, the results of which are seldom confined to the immediate offenders. All the accidents due to the didn't think folk can be traced to the encouragement of automatisms. The habit should be acquired of holding the breath perceptibly before the exhalation, for only thus do we take from the inhaled air all its vital elements. It is possible through faithful practice to wont ourselves to deep, rhythmic breathing as the rule, and with the help of the corrective exercises alternate breathing and held breath to develop a dynamic energy which we can divert at need to any organ or nerve of the body and hold there long enough to stimulate a revitalizing process. When we gain control of prana, for which purpose the held breath exercises are practiced, we are able to feel its subtle activity all over the body, and can concentrate it wherever an exhausted nerve needs renewing energy. It is only in these corrective exercises, or when the need is felt to change the currents, that the nostrils are closed and the breath arbitrarily directed to left or right. When the balance of the alternating current is restored, we leave nature to take care of their regular alternation. Human beings are electric batteries, and when either current of vital force, the negative or positive, flows too long, the vehicle of life becomes the engine of destruction. That is all. It is just a simple problem of electrochemical action, and the Tattvic law is the only thing that explains the mystery by which human life hangs on so slight a thread, and indicates to you the remedy for time of need. The knowledge thus put in your hands is a treasure beyond price. In all practice, the promptness of the body's response to the revivifying influence will be exactly according to the clearness with which you realize the thought and the fixity with which you can hold it. Directed consciously with your soul force vitalizing your mental vibrations, the current of prana increases in strength and electrical power, so that all the atoms are drawn into synchronous action, which means enormously increased power and activity. Chapter 32. The practical application of these laws. The first application of the Tattvic law is to realize that you are yourself responsible for the character of the forces active within. There is not an active life nor a thought to which the law does not apply. It expresses itself in the form of like vibrations everywhere and in everything. The forces of the universe are playing upon and around you, and what you think and feel determines what sort shall find affinity within. But knowledge alone of the law does not enable us to apply it, does not give us the power to use the master key. That is gained only by steadfast determination and faithful practice of all means to the end. If one thing has been emphasized more than another in these lessons upon the evolution of the self through health to freedom and power, it is the need of harmony from the foundation upward. The perfect life which can be made the common life, not the exceptional one permitting the unfolding of undreamed of powers of mind and soul, requires for its foundation a strong body whose equilibrium is maintained by the rhythmic functioning of all its complex organs, under the control of a sane, wholesome mind. Rid yourself right here and now of any belief you may have in the body itself being sinful. Matter is not in itself evil. On the contrary, it comes forth from God, and consists of that whereof God's self consists, spirit. It is spirit by the force of the divine will subjected to conditions and limitations, and made externally cognizable, perfect way, page 41. The whole end and aim of humanity's trials and experiences is to educate souls to overcome, to gain the willpower to escape the limitations of matter and return to the condition of pure spirit. Remember the distinction I pointed out to you between the will at the beck and call of desire, and the will which is the handmaid of soul consciousness and holds every thought under control. In the latter case only is the will strong and really free. To ignore the body and affirm that mind is all, is both unscientific and a grave mistake, for while mind is ensheathed in the body, all the vehicles through which consciousness manifests are efficient in proportion as their activities work together in rhythmic harmony for the good of all. Each must sound its own perfect note, just as the various organs of the body should, all together forming a harmonious chord. Only perfect health, with subordination of every organ to its legitimate function as well-trained soldiers work together, permits the freedom and enjoyment of this condition. The aim of all endeavor, says Anna Kingsford, should be to bring the body into subjection to, and harmony with the spirit, by refining and subliming it, and so heightening its powers as to make it sensitive and responsive to all the moti or of the spirit. The law of the rhythmic breath is the only explanation of cosmic forces which teaches how to sublime the body, and make it sensitive and responsive to the spirit. A sound mind in a perfectly controlled body is indispensable for progress in the refinement and development of all the sheaths which leads to consciousness on all planes and to soul knowledge. As Annie Besant says, all that is needed to be in heaven, now, is to become conscious of those vibrations, that is, vibrations of soul consciousness, higher states latent in all, but which require for their forthcoming conditions of peace, confidence, serenity, and poise. These are impossible in a pain-racked body, or in one heavy with the impurities of gross living and discordant thinking. When the spirit is deeply involved in matter, lower vibrations, inertia is manifested. We speak of being heavy-hearted, depressed in spirits, sleepy, yet prolonged sleep brings no rest. Under such influences, we are literally weighted down by the gross, heavy states of the physical atoms. As the spirit, through the purification of matter, evolves out of it, the vibrations increase in refinement, and lightness, exhilaration, and elasticity are increasingly apparent. In such states we bring enthusiasm to bear upon all that we do, and every activity is a joy, work ceases to be labor. We have connected ourselves with higher and purer sources of energy. Epictetus reminds us, men are distracted not by the things which happen but by their opinions about things. To consistently apply the Tattvic law and reap the advantage from the knowledge of it which is possible for every earnest and determined soul, there is in most cases an imperative need to change the whole tenor of customary thought, often, indeed, the order of the life, to purify the mind and body through wholesome thinking and living, with faith, charity, love, and truth, and effacement of all petty self-interests as the basis of daily activities. The cheerfulness and joy resulting promote a state of harmony, for happiness, confidence, and courage are upbuilding forces. Fear, anxiety, petty animosities, intolerance, resentment, and cowardice are integrating and discordant, because they disturb the balance of the tattvas, and greatly increase the preponderance of those which in excess are disastrous. The physical and mental peril of indulgence in these latter emotions and thoughts, is not half understood, but here, again, the Tattvic law clearly explains cause and effect, warns of the danger, and places responsibility. We must learn to direct our activities and govern our lives systematically, refusing longer to be the playthings of chance. We must think clearly and plan our days so they shall be filled with the things worth the doing. As a primary condition of peace, happiness, and health, you must rule your own forces. If you would attract harmonious conditions, your own mood must be harmonious and confident. When we recognize that we live in a world of forces of which we are a part, and that the soul-governed and directed will can control these forces, we realize our responsibility for the proper exercise of that control, through the right use and direction of the power of thought. It seems the most stupendous blindness that men have gone on for centuries delving into this world of effects, the earth and the life thereon, and persistently denied that the world of cause could be anything outside of the unit under examination, that they could dream of accurate results in studying one unit of the macrocosm as an isolated world of effect revolving upon itself. Only the all-compelling sun has forced man to recognize something of its influence, but so little does he comprehend it that he hesitates not to bar out its beneficent rays entirely from his dwelling, nor to build great factories and office hives where thousands of helpless human workers are immured, delving by artificial light throughout the long day. Oh, the pity of it! Since you know that the nature of certain thoughts must inevitably produce unfavorable vibrations, is it not as rank injustice to yourself and those affected by your mental or physical condition to indulge in them as it would be to take poison? As all vibrations can be controlled by thought, you must think the vibrations which you desire to be most active in your body. Not denial of pain and weakness, but conscious thought construction of the conditions you would manifest in your life, just as the artist bodies forth on his canvas the picture his imagination has conceived, is the sure method to hasten the fulfillment of your strongest desires and aims. You must control your thoughts, for they are always creating something. The imaginative power in man is the reflection of the power that in God created the universe. Evolution of Life and Form, Annie Besant. Rama Prasad says, as the balance of the tattvas brings comfort and enjoyment of life, so the sense of comfort and enjoyment which colors our prana and mind when we put ourselves in sympathy with the comfortable restores the balance of the tattvas. And when the balance of the tattvas is restored, what remains? Disinclination to work, doubt, laziness and other feelings of that kind can no longer stand, and the result is the restoration of the mind to perfect calmness. But, for such a result to be achieved there must be long and powerful application, nature's finer forces. See to it that you contribute no discord to your environment, if so unfortunate as to come in contact with it, be no party to it. By every act of your life set the example of poise, serenity, and happy confidence in ultimate good. Oppose passion and pessimism with silent thoughts of their opposites. There is much comfort in the knowledge that through beneficent suggestion we may often influence for good a nature which can hear no arguments nor opposing opinions without being stirred to excited antagonism. A mental atmosphere of love and confidence protects us from all evil thought waves. It is necessary to give final emphasis to the fact that the exercises in yoga breathing are not methods of regular, still less of rhythmic, breathing, but, as stated in the first chapter, are scientifically designed to restore the balance of the positive and negative currents which in normal breathing flow rhythmically and alternately, one after the other, at regular periods down the right and left sides of the spine, the right, positive, and left, negative, lungs being correspondingly charged. The excess of one current, or the undue preponderance of a tattva causes border, then, if order be not restored, disease. It is the inception of all disease, organic as well as functional. The normal order of God's vast universe is based upon rhythmic harmony, and the healthful functioning of all his creatures upon this terrestrial globe is a reflection upon the gross, or visible, plane of activity of that perfect, harmonious rhythm. Mark well that I say healthful functioning. We all know that this normal condition is the blessing enjoyed by not more than one person in 500, if so many. The present age not only suffers from many weaknesses resulting from the ignorance and wrongdoing of past generations, but has involved itself deeper and deeper in materialism, separating itself from the beneficent spiritual plane of its being, which has developed hitherto unknown diseases encroaching upon and impairing, more and more with the progress of this thing is called civilization, the channels of vital force, the nervous system. The corrective exercises are designed to restore divine order, no function of life having been so misunderstood and neglected during centuries as the vital one of breathing. The difference between the two exercises is very great. They supplement each other. Alternate breathing renews and freshens the human battery, undoing the mischief created through having employed one current too long. It is nerve calming and equalizing, for it restores the atoms to harmonious activity, when before they were all struggling for their individual breath of life. The held breath describes itself, for though the breaths are taken alternately as in the other exercises, the holding is the important part. It is nerve energizing to a greater degree and acts more promptly than any other remedy for nerve exhaustion yet devised, because the thought, concentrating prana in different plexuses, polarizes the electrochemical action, refines the tattvic vibrations, and raises them to inconceivably higher power. This exercise for pranayama, control of prana, thus electrifies all the nerves of the body and stimulates all the organic functions to their highest activity. I have had many proofs of its wonderfully purifying, renewing, and invigorating power when practiced regularly and faithfully. Since we are human electric batteries, there is no slightest doubt in my mind that we can accomplish more for the regeneration of our bodies in this way, the force being infinitely finer than can be done by the application of high power currents from electrical machines. D'Arsonville's new apparatus, designed to destroy the germs of old age, gives an alternating current of 1,000 million vibrations per second. But the mind gains nothing by this treatment beyond having its house put in order for it. Without belittling that, I must remind you that the mind still remains the mischief maker, which, uncontrolled, draws discordant vibrations that will quickly undo the good. Whether willpower is lacking to gain the necessary mental control, by all means try the electric battery. That is the next best thing, but remember that it is only man's clever device to replace divine methods, therefore incomplete. This explanation amply refutes the charge that an unnatural method of breathing is taught by yoga exercises. Instead of reversing the natural circulation of the blood, bringing abnormal pressure upon psychic centers in the brain, as one critic charges, the exercises, if directions for practice be followed, have none but the most beneficial and stimulating effect upon both the blood circulation and the circulation of prana, vital force, in the nerves. Long experience has proved to me beyond the shadow of a doubt that these corrective exercises successfully effect a purification and regulation of the cosmic currents flowing over the nerves which, through restoring the normal balance of the vital currents, restores harmony and consequently strength where heretofore discord and disease have held high carnival, mainly because of the disordered and unnatural breathing which has become the rule among mankind instead of the exception. Instances of harm resulting from yoga exercises can always be traced to injudicious practice, because of ignorance of the forces used, the two phases of the vital current and the tattvic vibrations composing the currents. All wholesale condemnation and denunciation are based also upon ignorance, but are due to observed results of malpractice. Unfortunately, this very practice has been sanctioned and directed sometimes by those who command confidence because supposedly having been trained themselves in the oldest Eastern systems. But I would caution you that no one who understands the science of breath would dream of instructing students to practice the held breath exercise for long periods of 30 to 45 minutes. The conditions thus produced are unnatural and destroy all normal activity. They are exactly what is described in the picturesque phraseology of the Shiva Gamla as the state when the fires of death burn. The enthusiasts who thus attempt to develop psychic powers by a tour de force, to break into heaven, as they perhaps suppose, by scaling its walls, are hopelessly defeating any spiritual aspirations they may have. You cannot burst through the sheaths without shattering them, each must be refined in turn. Again I say, evolution is the reverse process of involution. We must begin with the body and its directing mind. Soul consciousness is gained in no other way, and psychic powers are but a source of danger and tribulation, of weakness to the body and mind, until both mental sheaths are developed, the higher, sufficiently to recognize its power. Here, again, Anna Kingsford indicates the perfect way. It is vain to seek the inner chamber without first passing through the outer. Concentration is not a practice to be restricted to the special periods devoted to it, but as facility and power are gained to hold the mind under control, the law of effective thinking and doing should be applied in all the affairs of life. It should become the fixed habit to concentrate the mind upon the affair of the moment, no matter how trivial it may be. Only thus can the pernicious trick of mind-wandering be overcome, only thus can the mind be trained to efficient service at all times. And as the mind is making you, hour by hour, what you are, is it not really the most important task in life to learn to direct its activities in ways beneficent instead of ways pernicious? It is only when we can attain inward calm, can free ourselves from the tangle of the common daily perplexities and avocations, that we gain a true perspective of the things that so absorb us, realize the pettiness of most of them, separate the wheat from the tares, and cultivate a judgment that will successfully guide us and bring order and peace. There can be no final word on this vast subject. Its profound importance has been made clear to all who are sufficiently interested to think. To such there will be no fruitless moments of thought and endeavor. Ever, as they seek, will the path become more illuminated, and they and I must continue to learn as long as we strive for more light. May God's blessing bring to every reader of this book enlightenment and ever-increasing understanding of nature's laws, which are inseparable from the truth of being.